the hood champion boxing and sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Extremely important fight coming up. This is going to be a fight in time between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. Extremely huge fight. This is, I think, going to be the pivotal moment for women's boxing. You have a lot of great female boxers right now, a lot of great female boxers from the past who have paved the way for these women today. But this Saturday, you're going to see Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano in a huge fight at Madison Square Garden. They're actually headlining the bill, and both of them are going to be making 7-figure plus purses. Now, the uniqueness of this needs to be foot stomped and needs to be addressed, because there are a lot of boxing promoters who have been behind women's boxing, but not really. I can't say with confidence that their goal was to ensure that women's pay equal to men's pay. Do you understand? I just don't think that was the focus. And I just think there were a lot of obstacles because the public, even now, isn't really, I would say, ready to accept that. But I think we're getting there. Now, you fast forward to about 6-7 years ago, where Eddie Hearn really got his hands involved in females boxing, and we all know Fast Talking Eddie. He really started getting behind females boxing, and with Katie Taylor on board and just the type of cars he was putting on, you hear him talk a lot about it. But at the same time, I think he could have provided a 7-figure payday to Katie Taylor a while ago. But then again, it's not easy to fill up stadiums and arenas sometimes with women boxers, unless you're fighting in their homeland. But even then, it's still hard. So Eddie Hearn has been working. He's been an advocate for females boxing. But then you look at what's happened in the last, so that's about 6 or 7 months with Eddie Hearn kind of being behind it and trying to push females boxing, get it to the forefront. But then Jake Paul comes along. And he's been fighting the last couple of years and putting Amanda Serrano on his card. Now we got to understand what makes Jake Paul special, okay? Is that platform that he brings with him, and with those fights, you're talking about, 20 plus million people. But then the fights that he's had, he's captured the imagination of the entire boxing community and also the world, because he has transcended from YouTube star to boxing, boxing to YouTube, and on an international level, because there's kids and adults who know about Jake Paul and follow Jake Paul from all corners of the world. So that's what makes Jake Paul and his situation special. And his profile and his platform is probably bigger than Eddie Hearn's. Not his credibility as a promoter, but his credibility as a promoter, at least as of right now, with most valuable promotions. You have he deserves to be lauded. You got to give him credit for him coming into the mix and saying, you know what, let's make sure that anyone on my undercard gets paid handsomely, twice what they've been getting. But for these females in this fight, make them the main event and make sure they get paid 7 figures. Jake Paul is willing to go against the grain and say, okay, as a promoter, it looks like if I was to benchmark somebody's business model as far as a promoter, I'm going to take half of what they take. And that half that I'm setting aside, I'm going to filter that down throughout my fighters' persons. And that's commendable. But the difference with Jake Paul is he's not greedy. He's already, he has money. But a lot of these other promoters have money, they're just greedy. And although this isn't boxing related, we're talking promoters at the time, you can kind of look at what's going on with Dana White. True indeed, there are a lot of costs associated with putting on a fight, costs associated with fighters' training camps. You know, there are all kind of costs that we're aware of as fans, a lot of kind of little hidden fees and costs that we're not privy to. And I get it. But at the same time, you know, fighters, in particular in the UFC and even in boxing sometimes, we can do a little better with the purses, especially for those guys who aren't very well known. The guys who are headlining the cards for the most part in boxing, they get paid very good. But in the UFC, that's not happening. But when you come back to women's boxing and you look at what's happening for women and in boxing, it's just monumental. So there are a lot of people who have mixed opinions on Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. And the reason is, Serrano, although she's a unified featherweight champion, she's held titles across 7 divisions, okay? She is really coming from a lighter weight. And that does matter. You know, 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds can make a difference in a fight. But Serrano is not light-handed, okay? You say, well, hey man, there's still, weight matters. Yeah, it does. But let's look at Pacquiao, okay? 8 weight division champion. She's 7. Why aren't we talking more about Serrano, okay? But as she gets ready to go up against Taylor, who's, as far as a lightweight champion, man, she's undisputed, she's unbeaten. But let's look at the records. Katie Taylor, 20 wins, 6 losses. Amanda Serrano, 42 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 32 knockouts. Let me correct myself. I meant 6 knockouts for Katie Taylor. She's 20-0 with 6 knockouts, opposed to Serrano, who has 42 wins, 1 loss early in her career, with 30 knockouts. So 42 wins, 30 knockouts, and somebody has 20 wins and 6 knockouts. That tells me that there's some knockout power with Serrano. So as far as her coming up in weight, I don't see her at a huge disadvantage, because Katie Taylor is not a big puncher. She's a volume puncher. She's aggressive. She has excellent feints, excellent boxing ability, but so does Serrano. Now, when we start looking at really trying to break this down and understand these two and who do we give the competitive advantage to, I think first we need to, when we're talking about competitive advantage, it's not just about in the ring. When you look at outside the ring, I think they're equally matched, because Serrano has influenced a lot of women, a lot of young girls, and Katie Taylor has done the same. These two women are outstanding role models, not just for women, just for people in general, especially young people coming up, people who have goals, who want to do something with themselves, in particular like boxing or anything, but talking about them with boxing. There just weren't many. Could you imagine them as young girls having a dream to be boxers? Serrano, older sister, professional boxer, was her inspiration. Older sister talked her into it. Serrano took off. Katie Taylor writing letters to people talking about boxing, how she loved it, struggled in Ireland because she just really couldn't get fights. Really wasn't that much attention on boxing in Ireland. She was just advised to keep working on her skill set, and she'll eventually get recognized. If she has sound fundamentals, she will get recognized. And look, she ended up getting recognized, and look at where she's at today. So I think as far as outside of boxing, I think they're equally matched, okay, as far as their influence on people. I think their struggles and their ability to find a way to win and put themselves in probably in a dream position to headline Madison Square Garden for the lightweight undisputed distinction. I think that is absolutely amazing. But when we take a look at the two of them, we start talking about inside the ring, the competitive advantage. Well, styles make fights, okay? Both of them like to come forward. Katie Taylor is a volume puncher. Serrano can punch too, and she can throw in volume. The harder shots come from Serrano. Katie Taylor has certain habits where she likes to feint, she likes to act like she's gonna throw a jab, lead with the right hand. She does a lot of leading with the right hand, but she's kind of using the left hand up and down and jab to kind of just, keep the opponent's mind busy. And then out of nowhere, she'll come in and lunge with that straight right hand, but then also come back and then throw the hook where she catches the opponent coming forward. So Katie Taylor is outstanding at setting traps. But the problem she's going to run into with Serrano is good at counter-punching, setting traps, and Serrano is aggressive. She's going to push the fight and make Katie Taylor mix it up. Katie Taylor does not do well when she has to mix it up. Katie Taylor likes to be on her front foot. She likes to box. She likes to move around. She likes to control the fight and keep it at her pace. These are 2-minute rounds. Serrano isn't going to let her keep it at her pace. Serrano is going to push the pace and let shots go. And when the leathers start flying, I have a feeling Serrano, somewhere around the middle of the fight, we're going to see a knockdown of Serrano. I think Serrano is going to get Katie Taylor out of there. And a lot of time when you're in a fight and you have the crowd willing you on, it's going to be in New York, man. It's all kind of Puerto Rican. You're going to be hearing, Boricua, El Coqui, all that craziness is going to be going on out there, man. It's going to be an event, and it's New York, so there's a lot of, Irish fans out there too. So, but I just think, the Puerto Ricans, man, and all Dominican, everybody, even who speaks Spanish out there, I think this is going to come, and their presence is going to be very overwhelming. Kind of like when you have somebody from the UK fighting, and they go wherever their fight is. Their presence in there is overwhelming. And I think Katie Taylor's a professional, and she'll be able to handle it, but I just think Amanda Serrano has a home field advantage, and it's going to be tough. Tough for Katie Taylor. You gotta look at this and try to understand how is Katie Taylor going to be able to blunt Serrano's offense, and then with someone who's so aggressive. I do think Katie Taylor is in a much better position today than she was in a year ago, or maybe even a year and a half ago, when she fought, I think it's Persoon, the first fight. That first fight, Katie Taylor lost that fight. They robbed Persoon, but then, she came back and Katie Taylor did what she had to do. So she learned from her mistakes. Because Katie Taylor, if you hit her, she'll fight. But that's not her strength. And in that first fight, it was a blueprint, really, on what to do. Push the fight to her. Get her on her back foot. She can't fight going back. But in the second fight, she worked on her stamina, she worked on her defense, and she made sure her work rate would be that to where she could overwhelm Persoon. And she did that. And she was catching her clean, countering her, and just looked amazing in the ring. So her going in there with Serrano's not Persoon. Serrano can box, Serrano has defense, and she has power. And she's not going to come in there recklessly. She knows how to set traps as well. The big right hand, the left hook, the uppercut, stepping aside. Like, the things that Serrano can do are some things that Katie Taylor's previous opponents, they weren't at that level. And that's why this is a big deal. You figure you got a little bit of Pacquiao in here with someone who has, Amanda Serrano, she was a 7-weight champion. Seven different weight classes, and was a champion in each weight class. Then you have both of them being undisputed champions, 2 different weight classes. And now you have them coming together to fight for an undisputed distinction. So you got a little bit of the Josh Taylor. You got a little bit of Kambosos Haney in there. You got a little bit of Charlo Castaño in there. You got a little bit of all the big fights with men involved that we're all clamoring for and can't wait to see. You have all of that here with these women. And there's a huge buzz around it. And I really think this is a much bigger event This may be the biggest event of the year, to be honest with you. I'm not talking about as far as purses and stuff like that. Tyson Fury, Dillian White was huge. Usyk and Joshua was going to be huge. But as far as everything surrounding this fight, this is a moment in time. And I think this is the biggest fight of the year. I mean, it's kind of overshadowing Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez. Somehow they're fighting on the same day, which I just think is madness. If you're like me, we'll be kind of going back and forth, trying to watch both of them at the same time. But it's pretty amazing. One thing about Katie Taylor, if some of you guys didn't know, I think last year she went out there and won a gold medal in the Olympics. So she has that to her accolades as well. But you got to look at age too. When you talk about these women, man, because Katie Taylor, she's 35 years old. How's that going to affect her? I don't think it would affect her that much, but it could. So, very interesting to see how this fight is going to play out. But right now, Taylor's, as far as odds, if you bet $1, you get $1. So she's the betting favorite. Serrano, you bet $8, you get 11. So Serrano's the underdog. Can kind of understand how that's going to come to fruition, but at the same time, I think as we're pretty close to the fight, but I think maybe Friday that may open up a little bit closer. You got to take Serrano's punching power and knockout record and her boxing ability, her killer instinct. You got to take that into consideration. So I think that gap is going to close. They're not far off. I think it's going to close a little bit. And as far as the draw, it's 14-1. But as far as the card itself with these two, it's a pretty interesting card. Jesse Vargas and Liam Smith are fighting. That's a pretty good fight, but then again, you're not going to see huge names on here because again, it's going to be on the zone, and they just don't have the names that that we would like to see on an undercard like this. But for the purses and the payout, they got to do what they have to make sure they can fill up the undercards and make sure they can pay these guys kind of what they. Something to keep them happy, but you're not going to get huge names on here because the budget's just not there for that. Then you're going to have Franchon Cruz-Dezurn. She's fighting Ellen Cederos. If you don't know who Franchon Cruz-Dezurn is, she's the one who was fighting and that big, I can't remember her name, the big Hispanic chick that looked like a man, sounded like a man, and tested positive for steroids. And that's when her wig came off. You guys remember that? The whole wig came off, and Barry Hunter, I think is his name, the guy who trained the Peterson brothers, man, he snatched it off her head, said, get this SHIT off her head, and that was hilarious, man. But she's back in action, man, and they're fighting for an undisputed distinction, WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO super middleweight titles. So two huge women fights on the cards, two huge women fights. Then you got a couple of names on here that you guys probably won't even, I'm not going to waste my time talking about, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, including Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, you got 7 fights on the card. Including Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, you got 7 fights on the card. So it's going to be pretty interesting, but don't hold your breath as far as too much excitement in those undercards because I really don't know who those people are. But a lot of people still feel Katie Taylor, man, shouldn't be in the position she's in. People are split. Some people think that Amanda Serrano is the more well-rounded fighter. And some people feel Katie Taylor is the more well-rounded fighter. But when people are talking, that's why it's hard to find somebody who's fair and not biased because when they're asking people these questions, if you ask them from Ireland, they're going to say Katie Taylor is the more well-rounded fighter, the more polished fighter, the cleaner boxer. You ask somebody who happen to, be Puerto Rican or from, New York or the stateside, they're gonna say that Serrano is, the same thing, the more polished, well-rounded. But the advantage as far as power, everyone is saying this from both sides of the pond, that Serrano definitely has the heavier hands. She's gonna come at her aggressively, and that could be a disadvantage for Katie, but some saying that's going to play into Katie's hands because Katie boxes well against aggressive, because Katie boxes well against aggressive opponents, and that's going to give her an advantage to counter and catch him coming in, so she can win on points. But I'm telling you right now, if Katie Taylor's plan, her game plan is to win on points, that's not going to happen. She's at a huge disadvantage fighting in the States. Although Eddie Hearns tried to have some influence over the judges who were selected, Katie Taylor's already at a disadvantage. She's going to have to come in, and she's going to have to let her hands go and just totally, like she's going to have to just outbox Serrano to the point, to a conclusive decision. But if they're exchanging and the fight's close, I just don't see Taylor getting a nod. I don't. And if she gets knocked down at any point in a close fight, she can just wrap it up. She might as well wrap it up and just go home, because she's not going to come in there. No one's ever come into a fight and just shut Serrano down. Okay, we're not talking about the one loss early in her career. No one's just come and shut her down. It's just not going to happen. Okay, now with Katie Taylor, okay, what anyone says, that first fight with Persoon, or however you say her last name, she gave Taylor the business. But I do believe Taylor learned from that, and it's going to be interesting. It's kind of hard to call. I'm just going with Taylor, with Serrano, because I like knockouts. I like the power, and I just feel that she has a lot of momentum going in with this because of Jake Paul. She's been extremely active, and now she gets the opportunity she's always dreamed of. Same thing with Katie Taylor, but I'm gonna go ahead and give the nod to Amanda Serrano. I am. She got a lot of people supporting her. A lot of people are gonna be there in the crowd. Rosie Perez, a lot of other people of Puerto Rican descent from New York. She's gonna have a lot of people there who are just a huge boxing fan of Amanda Serrano, and it's going to be very interesting. A lot of people from Puerto Rico are going to be coming into town, so it's just going to be a real good event. But we'll see, man. I think it's setting up for what's expected to be an epic fight. But I think the key to this fight is for Serrano to impose her power and her aggression with intelligence. That means throwing 3-4 jabs, getting Taylor on that back foot, and then letting the right hand go, stepping inside behind the jab, shooting to the body, coming back on top, using angle, spinning her. Because Katie Taylor is very, very clever. And Katie Taylor can win this fight very easily if for some reason Amanda Serrano underestimates her boxing ability. Katie Taylor can really box, and so can Amanda Serrano. Katie Taylor, I think, does have more crisp shots. Definitely throws more aligned with the textbook shots. Serrano is solid as well. I think sometimes her punches don't look as clean as they're being delivered, but they're definitely more impactful. So I just think this really boils down to, who wants it the most. But I think, in addition to who wants it the most, I really think power has a lot to do with everything, people. I don't care what you say. You get the person who can box and keep away from you, but for how long? How long can they box and stay away from you until eventually you catch up with them? I mean, it's tough to go a whole 12 rounds, 10 to 12 rounds with a fighter who can hurt you, and to avoid that power the whole fight. It can be done, and that's what Taylor has to show. Now, if Serrano starts getting tired for some reason, she's going to be in bad shape. Taylor may not have the one-punch knockout power, but Taylor can get a stoppage because Taylor can punch every second of every round. And if Serrano starts to slow down, she's going to be in bad shape. So I think both of them are training hard to ensure that this doesn't happen. They're both aware of what they both bring to the table. And I think we're going to see a really, really great fight. And I don't think anybody should miss out on it. And don't sleep on them because they're women. Don't do that. I don't think we should do that. I think everyone deserves to check out the fight. Not everybody has the zone, and I get it. But there are other ways to watch the fights, man. So figure it out and go check it out. But that being said, looking forward to see them step into the mecca of boxing in New York City, Madison Square Garden, headlining the fight this Saturday. and I will definitely be tuned in. I am picking Serrano to win. I think she's gonna hurt, maybe even knock down Katie Taylor. If she gets her hurt really badly, I think she'll stop. I think she'll get the stoppage. I think the referee's gonna jump in. It may be a controversial. I'm gonna say it's gonna be a controversial stoppage. If she hurts her, I think the referee's gonna jump in. Not because he's been paid off to stop the fight. I just think with these are women, and I think the referee's gonna look and see women instead of seeing combatants, and just let them fight. One thing I do know about both of them, they rather go out on their shield than have somebody stop it prematurely. That they don't want that. They don't want that. They want to fight. Let me fight. I'm a fighter. If I lose, let's not allow controversy to seep in. Let me lose. Let me fall flat, face first. Fall flat on my face, and it is what it is. But if they get stopped while they're still standing up and their hands are up and they're throwing shots, but they're a little dazed, that's good. And there may be a riot inside there, especially if they do it to Serrano. There may be a riot inside that arena. So hopefully they got the right referee in there, because it can get ugly real quick. That being said, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Shout out to all the veterans. Looking forward to this fight. I'm in the breeze.